Married, slept with another man, and you regret it immediately. Husband found out. I'm not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Update. Married, slept with another man, and you regret it immediately. Husband found out. I'm not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice. As I mentioned last time, husband called me and asked me to leave the kids with my parents, then asked me to meet him a few hours later. We were to meet at a nice little restaurant we used to frequent when we were younger, where he took me to our first date. Initially, I thought of it as a positive that he wants to be somewhere familiar, where we have a history. But as hours went by, I was sure this is just poetic justice. The place where we had our first date will be the place where he ends it all, like a cycle. It ends where it started, I suppose. The mind can mess with you like that, turn a positive into a negative at a snap. Even though I've seen him almost daily the past 6 weeks, he was avoiding me, and I never had a proper look at him. He lost weight, got a new haircut, was dressed very nice, like it was for an occasion. Dumping my sorry ass and getting along with his life would have been it, I suppose. I wanted to hug him, but he cut me short. I will never forget the words he spoke to me. Have a seat. Let me speak. I want my wife back. Something happened to her and I don't know where she is. You know my wife better than I do, so I want to ask you if you have any idea what has happened to her. Can you tell me why she found it so easy to betray both myself and our children? I started crying, and he told me he didn't invite me there to make me cry. He told me he has a few things to tell me, and that day will be painful things to hear, and to let him know if I am strong enough to listen to him, or if I want some space first. I nodded no, and he started. He told me that the first 2 weeks after he found out, he wanted nothing but to hurt me. He hated having to come and pick up the kids for practice because I would be there. He wanted to go to my work and let everyone know I am __. He wanted to call my parents and siblings and let them know, to tell his parents and brother, to tell everyone we know. He wanted to divorce me, taking the kids away from me. His mind was all over the place, but all these feelings were forced. He was hurt. He still is hurt, but had plenty of time to think. He knows what he wants to do, but before he tells me, he wants me to answer a question. Why? And I answered the most sincerely I could, because I could. I didn't need to, I didn't have to, but I could. He nodded, then asked me if I regret it. I said I do. He said he believes me. Music. He then asked me if I am sorry for being exposed. I told him no. My actions have consequences and I will live with them, but that I hope that whatever shape those consequences will take, losing him will not be it. He needed. He asked me if I ever thought about the kids and how their lives might change because of my actions. Some people recommended I'd be brutally honest when answering his questions, people who went through my situation. So I told my husband that when I was in bed with the other man, I immediately felt guilt, and the kids were my first thought. And what a big mistake you're making. But before it was all about myself. No kids, no husband, no family, just myself. He asked me if we used a condom, and I told him we did. But the other man never finished because my guilt was too much and left a few minutes after we started. He nodded, but he was swallowing hard, and it was clear he had a hard time asking me about this. He asked me if I would have it within me to forgive him if the roles were reversed, and I told him that I struggled with the same question, and while being in the situation, I want to immediately say yes, of course, I would forgive you. The truth is, I don't think I could forgive him. He nodded again. I told him I realized how selfish I am to ask him to come back, but I am willing to fight for him and do anything he asks of me. He asked me if I want him back at home. I said yes. Then he asked me if I understand what I am asking him to do. I'm asking him to come back home, eat his pride. No, kill his pride. Kill any traces of ego he might still have. Ask me if I can imagine what this whole situation is doing to his self-worth and his team. It was painful to listen to him. I felt sick with myself. And to be honest, I felt like we're not husband and wife anymore. I felt this meeting was more foreclosure than anything, and I started to get used to the idea. Many people in the previous thread said as much, that he will not want anything to do with me, and moreover, this is how we split. The fact that he next told me he spoke with a lawyer cemented this idea. He told me he had a few appointments with a lawyer. Papers were made. Silence. None of us spoke for a few minutes. My mind started going to the kids, trying to figure out how to plead with my husband to not go for full custody, how to explain to my parents and his parents my actions, and so on. He then told me that the kids should remain with my parents until they start school, or maybe longer. After that, my parents live close to their school, so it would be easy for the kids. I asked him why, and he said if we are to work on ourselves, we need some time alone, but we should both take a few days off and leave the city. I asked him if this means he will move back in. He said yes. I asked him if this means he is giving me a second chance. He said yes, but he told me this is the hardest thing he has ever had to do. That a week ago he was ready to serve me with divorce papers. He told me he doesn't hate me. He had time to think, to calm down, and to think some more. I betrayed his trust. He told me it would have been better if I told him in the morning, I'm going to __ some other man, and I'll be back home for dinner. At least that wouldn't have been behind his back. He is not sure how he can trust me again, but he will try. So I enumerated some things from the previous thread. Open phone policy and GPS tracking. He looked at me and told me he is not the police or a detective, that there is no way for him to rebuild his trust in me if he has to always check up on me. So I asked him if he wants me to leave my job. He told me that would be a mistake. We don't need the money my salary brings in, but it is not for him to demand me to leave my job. He knows I love my work, and that would be selfish of him. He also told me, besides, the other man will no longer be an issue. I asked him what that means, but he said nothing and changed the subject. I asked him to go to marriage counseling. He doesn't want to. He told me whatever issues he will have to work through, he will do so himself and doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do. However, if I want to go to individual counseling, he is fine with that. He just doesn't see it working for himself. So we will start clean. He will not hold it over me, but that doesn't mean it is forgotten. We have a lot of rebuilding ahead, and while there will be no, at least I haven't __ another woman in our future talks, he will not be shy about the matter. He doesn't want us to tell anyone, for me, not for himself. If we start telling people, they might eliminate me from their social groups, and he doesn't want the mother of his children to suffer by proxy. The children will suffer if I am shunned by other mothers and friends. The kids will miss out on play dates and other group activities, and he doesn't want that. He made it clear he is not keeping this secret for a benefit, but he hopes I understand I should suffer. At least I should be ashamed, which I am. We chatted some more, but the above were the most important points. Later that night, he was home. He settled in the guest room. We talked some more. It felt weird without the kids around, but he was there and it was nice. We sat on the couch and he told him I want to tell our parents about the affair. He said he doesn't think it's a good idea. Well, my parents may be more lenient because I am their daughter. His parents will have no reason to handle the situation with gloves. But I insisted. I told him that my actions should have some consequences, and that so far it feels like he is allowing me to get away scot-free. So he agreed we could tell our parents. What happened next is a little embarrassing to write about. He asked me if I really feel like I should be punished for my actions. I told him that yes, there should be some punishment. He said, "All right then." And then he asked me to take off my pants. Then he asked me to bend over his knees, and he spanked my ass red. It was the most submissive I have ever been to anyone in my adult life. When he felt it was enough, he dropped my panties and __ me from behind, holding my hands behind my back. It was the most intense sexual experience the two of us had, and the most satisfying for me. I surrendered completely to him, and it was the best experience of my sexual life. He then carried me in his arms to my bed because I was exhausted, and I wouldn't have made it there myself. He slept in the guest room. We both went to work the next day, Monday. When we got back home, we went to visit the kids and spend time with them. When we came back home, we talked and talked and talked. I had expected him to spank me again, but nothing happened. We decided that once a week we will have a status checkup, discussing what we liked or hated about each other the previous week. I decided I will go to individual therapy. He decided he wants a room for himself. A man cave. Wednesday, we had both our parents together, and I came clean to them. My father took it the hardest, and he was very upset when he figured out my mom already knew. Husband's parents were not pleased, to say the least, but they said they trust my husband's judgment. Husband was adamant they not speak a word of this to anyone. He told them we wanted them to know because we respect them, but that nobody else should find out. And this is his decision. Husband's parents dropped a bomb when they said they'd seen reconciled. My mother-in-law had several affairs, and they worked through it. This was before my husband was born, but after his brother was born. Husband joked and asked if he as a baby will fix this child. We both took a week off from work. Next week, we'll leave for a cabin in the mountains where we can have peace and quiet, and can hike and be just the two of us. We haven't had a fight yet, and it's so weird because I've read fights will be frequent after an affair, even during reconciliation. He hasn't asked me anything more about the affair, aside from the details from our date last Sunday. We have some books we will take with us to read about affairs and rebuilding after them. That is all I have to say about it. I apologize for the length, but I felt the need to talk with someone before I start my therapy once I return. Thank you to those that gave me advice.